All right, everybody, good morning. Just wanted to give you a quick update where we're at. We had some parts roll in and where I'm at here. So on this 333 stroker, we did get, we've got a new Melling oil pump here, and I want to show you something to keep an eye out for. This is the high volume one and new set of ARP bolts. They are all Loctited in. The pickup tube is a Canton 15-621, and that sticker is on here, so be sure you remove that, which I almost forgot, but make sure you remove that because obviously that could come loose and clog up your pickup screen. So make sure you remove that, and then of course make sure you have the proper depth, or these things always need some adjusting when you bolt them on. So my pan is 9 inches deep, and I can put the straight edge on there, but we're about 9 inches deep, and you want about a 1/2 inch to 3/8 of an inch. So we're just about, yeah, little over a 1/2 inch, or right at a 1/2 inch clearance. Another thing I like to do, level this out against the edge of the block. You know, tweak it a little bit here and there, just so it's level. I mean, I don't think that's super critical, but you don't want one side exposed, but I don't think that's a big deal. But one thing I wanted to mention, so this is the high volume pump. I went with a brand new one, and I was going to reuse this, my Melling. This is just an M68, a standard volume one. You can see it's more shallow here. That's the difference between a high volume and a standard volume, is this dimension here versus that. So you got bigger gears, it's going to pump more oil. But one thing, yeah, and I do have with the high volume pump, this is a heavy hardened rod, the drive rod, but definitely want to make sure you Loctite these in place. You know, we had the issue with this car that lost oil pressure because these bolts came a little bit loose and the oil was blew out the gasket here. So make sure you Loctite that in place. Loctite, obviously you don't want this to come loose either because you'll lose oil pressure here. But also double check, take this plate off, these 4 bolts, and just inspect your gears, make sure there's no burrs or anything. And then when you put this back on, Loctite these back in too. But one thing, again, back to this M68 that I was going to use, was, if you look at this, this is not cast flat. So if you look online and you look at reviews, and you'll see people say, oh, as soon as I bolted it on, it cracked. Well, that is probably part of it there. If you look how that is not cast flat. So, you know, if you're going to reuse this pump, I would grind that flat so you don't have that binding issue, and putting too much pressure on one side of these bolts. So that would be something, you know, I would do if I was going to reuse this. And another tip is, if you're missing oil pump bolts, these are actually ARP exhaust header studs. But basically, exhaust bolts are the same size as the oil pump bolts for the pump to block. So I figured I would mock it up with this, and then I saw how this didn't sit flat. So I was going to take it off and do that, and took this apart, and then realized, you know, with the bearing clearances I'm running, 25 thousandths, I'd rather have the safety and the assurance of a high volume pump. So I just went ahead and bought a new pump. This one came in with bolts fit nice and flat. So this casting is different than that M68 over there. I would definitely modify that to make those bolts sit flat. But anyway, yeah, we got our windage tray on. I had to clearance it a little bit here. This is clearanced for the dipstick that comes through. So that was all good there. I did this, this was for the factory dipstick. This pan that I picked up, this is an eBay pan, you know, like a YN copy. And if it leaks, it leaks, but I kind of have to stick to somewhat of a budget. I got to skimp on a few parts here. So if this pan doesn't seal up correctly, you know, I'd like to get a Champ pan, or not a Champ, a Steph's pan, or another Moroso, but you know, that's not in the budget right now. So this one, I did mock it up. That's why the gasket's on here, and bolted it down. It looks like it's going to seal up fine. So we'll see what happens here. But I did have to go with the Canton. I mean, this Canton pickup was almost as much as the pan. So you know, for whatever reason, they don't sell the pickup for the 302 pan. They sell the pickup for the 351 pan. So, which would have been, you know, maybe one that's half the price. This was like, this stupid little thing right here was $90. Ridiculous. But anyway, that's not the point. And then this is a good little deal. This is a Mac windage tray. They're on eBay. Mac's out of business, but there's some guys that have some new old stock or have copied the design and are redoing it. It comes with the hardware, and actually the hardware I'm using on the Moroso, so I ended up buying a whole nother one of these to come with the hardware, because again, even if you just need to buy these couple of studs to mount the windage tray for Moroso or Canton, they're like $100. I got this windage tray for under $50 with the hardware. This is a Moroso pickup. I had this on hand already, so I didn't have to buy that, but I got a whole nother brand new windage tray, just I don't have the hardware to mount it. But did have to do a little clearancing right here. And then you do have to make sure, so it's got like a little built-in crank scraper right here. So there is a little bit of adjustment, you know, you got to do here when you're turning the crank over, just to make sure the rods, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but that notch right there, that's where your rod will go through, and it'll catch the oil and sling it out. So for the price, I'm happy with it. And before we button up the bottom end, I wanted to show you guys the setup on even these, all this stuff you need to tweak a little bit with bending this tab to get this in the right location, or putting a washer underneath there, or taking a washer out to make sure you get the right depth of your pickup. All that needs to be played with all the time. You know, you might have to elongate some holes here. This particular one I didn't, but I've had to do it before. And again, just make sure everything's Loctited here. If you want to go a step further, you can safety wire all this stuff. If I had a drill press or something, I probably would try to drill out these and run safety wire, but I don't really have a drill press or any way to drill these out for safety wire, but we may do that in the future. Nonetheless, so we got that, we got the pan, we've got got the cover ready to go on. It's all cleaned up and painted, so that's good to go. But next step, I'll degree in the cam. I've got I got a new set of Morel lifters that I cleaned up in the parts bin here, or the parts washer. So I got to drop some of those in, degree the cam, make sure we're good to go with this new Summit cam. So I got my cam card in here, and then I got a whole set of alloy bolts. These are off eBay, so I'm not going to be using all of them, but it'll be good to have some backups. But oil pan bolts, all stainless steel with stainless steel washers, and it's got the whole setup there. So $49, and this is for the odds and ends: intake manifold, carb stud, your coil bracket, header bolts, timing cover. So that'll come in handy. This is for the alternator, maybe. Water pump. So all of that, and all stainless bolts for $49. I figured it was cheaper than just getting this and that odds and ends. So should have everything there. I've got extra flywheel and pressure plate bolts, ARPs. So coming together, guys. I'm not in a big rush for this. I'm deciding if I want to paint the pan to match the block. But then if it leaks, you know, and I got to send it back or something, I don't know. I mean, I probably wouldn't have much luck sending that back. Anyway, by the time I get this together, it'll be past my return window, more than likely. So anyway, that's the update. Hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving coming up here in a couple days. And that's where we're at with the 333. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll get back and show you the degreeing of the cam, but I'm just gonna do dot to dot and verify that all the timing events are where they're supposed to be, and that's as far as I'm gonna go with it. All right, guys, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll catch up with you soon. Thank you.